And in the midst of this, you've got basically 2016 coming down the road, and people starting to seriously talk about this. The Hillary Clinton knocking Obama. It's clear that she's in the race. And Rand Paul is aggressively working to get into the race, into the Republican race. My personal prediction is that the Republican nominee is going to be Mitt Romney, but, time will tell. And if it were Rand Paul, what would America end up like if he actually got his way on everything? C. Edmund Wright is a contributor to Breitbart and the American Thinker. He's the author of WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again. Very, very thoughtful and insightful conservative commentator. C. Edmund, Edmund, Wright, WRIGHT.com is his website. And Edmund, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Should be fun today to just talk raw politics. No economics, no health care.
Indeed.
Just raw, team versus your team politics.
Sure. Well, let's talk Rand Paul. Rand Paul has characterized himself historically as the son of his father, as a libertarian. He's recently been taking a lot of those positions off the table. He's now a right-to-lifer, and libertarians are aggressively right to choose. He's talking about Christianity. Libertarians are atheists. But what if he were to get into office? What if he were to become president and to just go back to his, libertarian perspectives? What would that mean for this country?
Well, it's interesting. I would quibble a little bit with the libertarian position on Christianity and the right to life issue. There are a segment of the libertarians, maybe 20%, that are pro-life under the basis of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
No, but if you look at the Libertarian Party platform in the last 8 presidential elections.
I get that. And that's the big L libertarian. We're talking about little L libertarian within the kind of Republican universe and some within the Democrat universe, depending on their emphasis. And with Rand Paul, you're obviously in the Republican universe.
Right.
First of all, he's been all over the place on everything for a year. I mean, he's been an absolute disaster for a year, which is why I predict he will not even be a serious candidate. He'll niche his way through Iowa with and that's what he's trying to do now, Tom.
Right.
He's trying to niche his way on immigration and niche his way with his idiotic comments about the Tad Cochran campaign in Mississippi. And then his comments about the Rooney Rule yesterday, talk about the opposite of libertarianism. He's just what would a President Paul look like? Apparently whatever his consultants told him it needed to look like on this particular day.
Yeah, which means that he would have a lot in common with a lot of presidents. But I got an email here, or an article rather, from Americans for a Free Republic, AFR.org, and Nelson Hultberg wrote this piece where he says, many in America's freedom movement still hope that the Libertarian Party will one day become a power on the political scene to challenge the Democratic and Republican monolith, but in 42 years it hasn't happened and probably won't. They say the libertarians repeatedly fail because they have structured themselves upon the mistake of instant idealism, which leads to their marginalization. And then he goes on to say things like, libertarians think there should be no income tax and the government should support itself on fees and tariffs. That there should be no Social Security, there should be no Medicaid, there should be no unemployment insurance, there should be no long-term disability payments of any kind. But he says, he goes on to say, it's not a credible political platform to be gained through a political campaign today. It's rather an ideal that we can approach over the next 50 to 100 years, and basically using the Republican Party to get there. Isn't Rand Paul becoming that?
Well, he is. I would say my observation of libertarians, and by the way, it's kind of a conservative base Republican type, anti-Republican establishment, sort of more in the Tea Party base vein. I have a lot of libertarian-leaning beliefs with relation to taxes and regulation and some other things. So, I have a lot in common with some libertarians, but I got to tell you, Tom, and I run into them at CPAC and some other situations probably more often than you do.
Well, I've been at every CPAC but one, and I had surgery that year for the last 8 years. So.
Well, I'm sure we missed. Oh, okay. Well, then.
And I did my show from CPAC every year with one exception.
Okay. Well,
so I'm pretty familiar with CPAC.
But anyway, this libertarians come in all flavors. I mean, there are those who are, and a lot of libertarians, self-proclaimed libertarians, have no idea what it really means. So, I mean, they're all over the board.
But I'm talking about the real libertarian. There is a libertarian ideology or theology that explicitly says and doesn't so much borrow from Ayn Rand. You could say they evolved in parallel. That says that any belief in God is silly. That the libertarians are officially, God is a private matter. It's no business of the state. There should be no discussion of it in politics. That any legislation based on an assumption of a God is silly. And therefore their historic defense of a woman's right to choose an abortion, at least in the early trimesters.
Yeah, as I said, there are those who view the abortion as a religious.
No, I get it. There's Republicans who basically, I think, want to exploit libertarians because I describe libertarians as Republicans who want to smoke dope and get laid. Hey, we're in favor of legalizing pot and prostitution. But
there is some truth to that.
Well, I know, and my point is that really you could flip it around and you could say Republicans, are fiscal conservatives who want to get young voters in by talking libertarian, and there's a couple of relatively safe areas. I mean, if pot gets decriminalized and if prostitution gets decriminalized, what's the big deal? We just become like Portugal. It's or Amsterdam or half a dozen other countries, but as long as the billionaires hold the power, and as long as public institutions, from public libraries to public education to public roads, get privatized and turned over to, and public water systems get turned over to big national corporations, libertarians are happy with that, and so are Republicans.
Well, yeah, okay. In general, I would agree with that. I don't think it's happening very often. And I know you mentioned the Detroit issue, and I believe, if memory serves, you and I discussed that one day a few months ago. But,
yeah, Detroit's trying to privatize their water supply. They already privatized Belle Isle.
Well, yeah, and that's a whole other show, and we've already done that show, and maybe we'll do it again. But, the problem with that is Rand Paul, nor are a lot of his voters really as understanding of the libertarian platforms as you are, or if they are, they conveniently forget it.
Oh, I think he's conveniently forgetting it, because I think if you say to the American people, I want to be president of the United States, and the first thing I'm going to do is end Social Security, you'll never become president of the United States.
Right, and I don't know of people that I know that claim libertarian, that register libertarian, that vote for a Paul anytime they can, and then may or may not sit out the general election because the Libertarian candidate didn't win the Republican nomination or whatever. The people I deal with would not be in favor of that. As I said,
right, because they're Republicans instead of Libertarians. But the Republicans want to bring the Libertarians in when it's convenient, it seems.
Well, yeah, okay. That's what political parties do. They try to win.
I mean, it may well be the same with Democrats and communists or socialists. I mean, anyhow, see Edmund Wright. We're out of time, but his book, WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again, see edmundwright.com. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, and let's bet Mitt Romney.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Yeah, we'll see if it's Mitt. You think so, Edmund?
Yeah, I think Cruz. I'll do a little coffee wager with you.
Okay, we'll sit on it.